Today we're going to talk about the first two fire chiefs, Oscar Hutchinson and Edward Cap Conklin. But first we're going to talk about the time before there was a fire department. That would have been at the height of Lenox's Gilded Age, the cottager era, when mansions like Shadowbrook and Elm Court, Blantyre and Bellefontaine were built. Now, the millionaires like to have activities like the Gymkhana, where they would race their pet pig, or tennis matches and golf tournaments. One of their pleasures was this Lenox Hill Climb. It was held on October 14th, 1908. So this new automobile technology was all the rage. Cortlandt Field Bishop was responsible for creating the speed limit of 15 miles an hour in town, because he would race at 30 miles an hour. So this was a climb to go up Church on the Hill up to Aspinwall. So it would test the horsepower of the vehicle. This picture is right about where the Academy is now. Across the street is the Clifford Block. Now, when we talk about blocks in this terminology, we're talking about the building. We're not talking about a street surrounded block. So it would be a building with several stores on the first floor and apartments on the second floor, when we refer to as a block. Now, there was some growing concern among the cottagers. Here, for instance, is a picture of the Robeson estate, which would eventually become Groton Place, the current BUTI campus. And on that estate, a barn caught on fire. The stone barn at the Robeson Place in Lenox was burned. The Robeson fire may call attention to the inadequate fire protection of the big houses in Lenox, and something may be done toward organizing a permanent fire department. Well, that was in 1900, and nothing was done. And there was a tragic result of that inactivity. So this is, being here in this space, how far have we come? But back in 1909, in the wee hours of Easter Sunday morning, there was a fire that started in that Clifford block. Now, the Clifford family were the contractors of the day. If you wanted your cottage built, you hired James Clifford and Sons. So in that store was dynamite, was turpentine. There was also a jewelry store. And so there were various theories about how the fire started. And here's a picture with those urchins in the front standing about where that Clifford block used to stand. So Lenox has only a small, unorganized volunteer fire department, and until aid came, the flames spread rapidly. So there was a call put into the Pittsfield Fire Department, the Lee Fire Department, the Lenoxdale Fire Company, which was formed, I believe, in 1902, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, came to the aid. A large swath of downtown was burned. Fire started in the Clifford block. It spread to the Eddy block next door. Then the wind shifted and it spread to the Bull block, the Mahana block, Mrs. Cowig's ice house, and some outbuildings from the Mahana block, Joseph Regnier's home and a tenement house, Mrs. Rose Colbert's house. I don't think she was Colbert. and the Fenwick blacksmith shop. So you can see a big part of downtown burned. Now part of the problem was it had such a head start, and when the Lenox Hose Company came, they had about 100 feet of hose, and half of it was rotted out. So they had almost no way of fighting this fire. Because the fire had gotten such a head start, when the fire departments from the other towns made it into town, they realized that the Clifford Block and Eddy Block were beyond saving. But the Rogers home next door was catching fire, and it took 6 attempts. They would put the fire out, it would catch again. After the 6th try, they were able to finally save the Rogers house. However, the Rogers electric shop was in this building, so we weren't able to save Mr. Rogers' electrician shop. This is the Mahana block. This building it still exists in Lenox. It's that brick building next to Frankie's restaurant, so they did rebuild from the shell. Nearby on Franklin Street was the Tillotson livery. They had 60 horses, and there was a fear that this building would be next. So Mr. Tillotson let the horses run free, and they were chasing the horses down as far as Great Barrington. Luckily for Mr. Tillotson, the place did not catch on fire. Another place that did not catch on fire was Morse's Garage. So this was on the corner of Housatonic Street and Church Street. And there was a young proprietor by the name of Oscar Hutchinson who ran the garage. And when he was aware of the fire, he came running over because there were 500 gallons of gasoline in that garage, so he did not want that to catch on fire. However, he was still in his pajamas, and all he had was a garden hose. So he got on top of the roof of the barn next door and trained the garden hose on top of the garage and saved the garage. Now, who was Oscar Hutchinson? His dad was the station manager for the New Lenox Railroad Station, and also lived in the house. The house and station were the same building. He attended and graduated from Williston Academy in 1905. His class prophecy or final destination, he believed he would end in an explosion. His senior thesis was the development of the automobile. And his classmates said he reeked of gasoline. We have at the library the records of the Morse auto garage. They also reek of gasoline. So he kept a streak going. And here's his graduation portrait. So after this devastating fire, the town decided it was beyond time, and so the fire was in May of 1909. No, the fire was in April of 1909. In May of 1909, town voted to create a fire department, and they appointed Oscar Hutchinson as the chief engineer. Then they met to discuss, well, we need some fire apparatus. And there was a big argument. Do we get a horse-drawn steamer, or do we buy one of those new fancy automobile trucks? And it was quite the contentious town meeting. There was an accusation of grift by the losing faction, because the winning faction settled on the horse-drawn steamer. And if you haven't been to see the antique apparatus, this steamer is that 1873 Amoskeag steamer, which is on display in one of those bays. Right now, you can see this picture. This is Orbed Pond, which is now Orbed Field in Lenox near the St. Anne's Cemetery. So they were doing a test run. Now, you might think, why would they pick a horse-drawn carriage as opposed to a, wouldn't the truck be faster? Well, keep in mind, again, high speed for a truck might be 30 miles an hour, so it probably would have been neck and neck, which would be faster. However, one drawback to the horse-drawn vehicles is the vehicle would be at the fire station, but somebody would have to come with their team of horses and hitch up to the apparatus before they could even get to the fire. And any of the firefighters will tell you, moments count. So we had yet another town meeting at the end of 1909, and funds were appropriated for a truck which was ordered in 1909 and built and delivered in 1910. It's an American LaFrance, serial number 1. That truck is also on display in our antique collection. It is being taken for a test drive at the new fire station, which was built in 1910. And it was built by the Clifford brothers. So they were trying to make good on this calamity. So you've got Chief Hutchinson at the wheel. And here they are test running it on Walker Street, about where the entrance to Sloan's Tavern and Miraval is. Chief Oscar Hutchinson at the wheel with Eugene Mackey, Howard Joyner, and James Toulon on Walker Street. By 1913, there was a barn fire at Eastover, and Harris Fonstock was pleased with the promptness and efficiency of the fire department. So we've come a long way from 1909 to 1913. In 1917, our boys were going off to World War I. There were men who were a little older who stayed home to protect the home front. So here's a photo of the Massachusetts State Guard, mustered in 1917. And here in that center is Captain Oscar Hutchinson of Company G of the 20th Regiment. Pictures taken in front of the old center school. And that's where the guards held shooting drills. And the shooting range was on Willow Hill. And here is the muster card, which we have in the library's collection for Captain Hutchinson, and the list of equipment. This company was outfitted by Major George Tenor. He was married to a descendant of John Patterson. So those of you who attended the talk on the Lenox Minutemen who know that John Patterson was responsible for outfitting the Lenox Minutemen, that runs in the family too. So Major Tenor of Beaupre made sure that these men were all fitted for service. This company responded to, there was a riot in Boston, so they were actually called into duty. So Oscar was renting from Tillotson. His house was on the corner of Main Street and Franklin Street. And in 1929, that house was picked up and moved to Tucker Street. So the picture above shows the house on Main Street to the very left, and the picture below shows the current house, which is, it's actually been restored. Hutchinson was known for his skill with mechanics. Not only was he skillful with the fire trucks, but he was appointed by the county commissioners for snow removal. So he created some tractors and made sure that the county roads were clear. And here's a couple pictures of his garage. You know, it went from Morse Garage to Hutchinson Garage. The Hutchinson Garage was built on that corner of Main and Franklin, so where the current gas station is. In 1924, Hutchinson convinced the town that we needed engine 2, which was the another American LaFrance, and I believe the 24 is also on display. The Hotel Aspinwall. So the Curtis Hotel was the hotel of choice for visitors until the dawning of that automobile age. And in 1902, the Hotel Aspinwall was built. It was a 400-room hotel. It's hard to get a picture of this hotel all in one picture. And as a matter of fact, at the top of the hill, now this view is on Bald Head Mountain looking across the valley. So if you look, you can see, that's how big that hotel was. And it had state-of-the-art, powerful pumps capable of discharging 1,000 gallons of water per minute, supplying an independent fire system. So this was guaranteed never to burn. That's if your fire starts inside the building. And that's if the system was hooked up and ready to go because it was in season. But Lenox had an off season back then, and the hotel was not open for business. So when what was believed to be some kids in a car smooching and throwing their cigarette caused a fire on the outside of the building. And this was the result. So they couldn't use that tank. The nearest hydrant was on Hubbard Street across from the Dewey, the Birchwood Inn. It was a 4,000-foot run with Pittsfield and Lee fire departments helping the Lenox Fire Department pushing water uphill. So there wasn't a lot of chance for the Aspinwall to be saved. Luckily, it wasn't in season, so there weren't any guests. So the call came in, and Hutch looked out his window and saw the glow. He knew right away where the fire was. 2 years later, his son, Oscar Jr., was ready to graduate from Lenox High School. And Oscar Jr. had a good friend by the name of Edward Conklin, class of 33. And the Conklins lived on Tucker Street in a duplex. That duplex was across the street from Oscar Hutchinson's house at 15 Tucker. Now, Cap, from what I can tell, joined the fire department in 1935. He was a bunker. That meant he stayed at the firehouse and was ready to take calls as they came in and could alert the fire chief that there was a need for the fire department. He kept a tractor at the neighbor's garage, the Stewart-Waltz, which he used working at Elm Court. And here's the tractor at work across the street, and you can see Hutch's house in the background. Now here's a picture with Cap and his good friend and future son-in-law, Peanut Benite. That was the label? Chris is looking puzzled.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, good. And that, did I say son-in-law? As soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, that's not right, that's not right. His brother-in-law. And here he is with his army buddies at Fort Knox, because Cap enlisted in the army for World War II. And those of you who know Cap know that he knows how to tell a good story. So one day we make tea with the shaving water, and the next day we shave with the tea. So all in all, we are quite all right. Right? Staff Sergeant Edward Conklin from somewhere in Egypt. that somewhere in Egypt was for the Battle of El Alamein. And here is a AP photo taken in 1942. And here's that same photo as it made the AP wire and made quite a few of the daily papers. There's a July 1942 written below that picture. That scrapbook is from the Lenox Library collection. I believe that handwriting is his sister Judy Conklin Peters' handwriting, because she was a long time, when I took this job, I was told, you have big shoes to fill. And I said, you are absolutely right. So those of us who remember the puppet lady and Miss Judy owe a great debt to her. She wrote to Cap, your picture certainly caused a furor in Berkshire County. Here's Cap's appointment as sergeant. And here's a photo of Cap. You can see on his arm he has the 3 stripes for the master sergeant ranking he had attained at this point. And he was promoted to lieutenant in 1945. And here's a portrait of Cap, and you can see there's a silver bar on his hat, which indicates his lieutenant status. Here's an example of what's called V-mail or victory mail. If you can picture all those men overseas writing home to mother as Cap did, the strain on the postal service would have been immense. So what they did is they would type up the letter, and then the letters would be microfilmed. So now you're mailing microfilm rolls rather than big bags of mail. Then it would come to the States and it would be printed, however, not on full-size paper. It was about 4 by 6, maybe a little bigger. So these were the mail. This was the mail form that Cap would send to his family at home, particularly his mother. I now use 3 pair of regular sock, then wrap my feet in burlap, fill the overshoes with straw, and believe it or not, my feet are warmer than when I have boots on. In this letter, he also compares one of the bombed out cities to the Hotel Aspinwall times infinite number. So picture that burned out building, but over a good section of a city. One thing that's also in common with a lot of these letters sent by Cap, not worry about me. Almost every letter that he sent was, don't worry about me, Mom. And here's another, don't worry. I don't know how convinced he was to his mother, because he was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge. He did say, this is being written for me by a little Red Cross worker because the fingers on my right hand are banged up at present. However, they will be okay soon. Well, they were okay, but he never completely recovered from that injury. Cap earned a Bronze Star, at least 3 Battle Stars, the American Defense Ribbon, and the Purple Heart. And I'd like to take this opportunity, because we are so close to Veterans Day. If there are any veterans in the room, would you please stand so that we can show our proper appreciation for you? We thank you for your service. Well, Cap did come home, and in 1947, he was appointed as an engineer and caretaker of the Lenox Fire Department. It's also the first year he ran for assessor. He had a 53-year career as assessor, which was the longest career length of any town official. And now this is where we start to see Hutch and Cap working together. Hutch is now approaching elder statesman status, and he was working side by side with Cap. So for instance, they are testing out new force fighting equipment with this handy billy, and the caption reads, Fire Chief Oscar Hutchinson and Edward G. Conklin of the Lenox Fire Department man forest fire hoses to demonstrate this new equipment. And it's time for Lenox to buy a new truck. I think this is the one truck we don't have currently. It is a 1946 Buffalo truck, engine 4. It was appropriated in 1942, but because of the war, it was delayed arriving in Lenox in 1946. And I understand that had it delivered in 1945, that bumper would not be chrome because there was no chrome available during the war. So we were lucky we waited till 1946 because we got a nice shiny chrome bumper out of it. At that time, the department decided maybe it was time to retire that horse-drawn steamer. Now this truck would be put through its paces 10 years later in 1956. So here's a picture of Shadowbrook. Now, most pictures that we see of Shadowbrook are from the lakeside. That's the nice view with the porches. You don't see this view that often because, like Hotel Aspinwall, it's hard to get the full cottage in a picture because it was so huge. It was the largest mansion in the country until the Biltmore was built in North Carolina. So this driveway would have been the driveway that Cap would have arrived when he saw the building on fire and a bunch of priests up on the roof sitting on the gutter with flames below them. So the word came in that there was a fire. The fire alarm the wires had burned out, so this priest held on, made the call, finally got through. That priest did not survive because he was in the building too long. And that call went to Mary Shalley, who was a switchboard operator. His grandson and I went to school together. She called Hutch, who called Cap and said, take the Buffalo, I'll meet you there with the LaFrance. Now, by the time other help arrived, including the LaFrance, Cap had already rescued 10 priests. There were no other people to be rescued at that point. It was too late to save Brother Perry. Cap tried. He had an oxygen mask. He put his leg over the windowsill, and it was like a blowtorch, he said. The heat was so bad. So he was unable to rescue Brother Perry, but he tried 3 times to rescue, but he did rescue 10 other priests. In one set of priests he rescued because the ladder was not quite long enough to reach them. So there's a nearby oil tank. Now you picture this. This building is on fire, and Cap is putting this ladder on the tank so that he could reach those priests. Another pair of priests, Cap could not put that ladder up against the building because, again, it's on fire. So he, with his strength and that wounded hand, was holding that ladder so that they could come down the ladder because he couldn't rest it against the building. So the strength and the courage that Cap showed, and he said, I was just doing my job. Now, he was given a citation to add to his other medals from the Stickles-Turner post of the VFW. Now, in 2009, the VFW had lapsed, and it was reconstituted and renamed the Conklin Lane Coakley VFW. And so we start to see again Cap and Hutch working in conjunction with Cap being the first to arrive. For instance, I mentioned Beaupre earlier. This is Beaupre burning down in 1961. So Cap was the first to arrive, and Chief Hutchinson would call for other aid. It was the same situation when the El Dorado burned in 1967. Cap was quoted in the paper that the fire was difficult because of the several false roofs of the bar on the bar. And here's a photo of our two chiefs side by side. We have Chief Hutchinson, who becomes ill in 1967, and Cap Conklin is appointed acting fire chief until Oscar Hutchinson succumbs to his illness in 1968. Now, Cap continued the example set by Hutch by making sure the fire station had the state-of-the-art equipment that they could have. He made use of the Lenox Fire Company, which is distinct from the Lenox Fire Department. That would be the volunteer corps. And that Lenox Fire Company remodeled the interior of the fire department, free labor, material at cost, and also received donations to provide plectron units. These were stationed in key firefighters' houses, including Cap. I understand that Cap kept his on the work table in the gun room, which became Christine's bedroom. But I think Christine, that bedroom was and gun room were not the same at the same time. Oh, good. All right. And those of us who remember the fire whistle codes all remember hoping to hear 22, because that meant there was no school. The fire department has had a long history of a culture of camaraderie. On the left, you see the Lenox Fire Department's ball in 1925, held at the town hall. Believe it or not, that's the current stage at the town hall. And on the right, you see a 50th anniversary ball, also held at the town hall. And boy, did they like to party. It had dancing until 2 a.m. They were also known for their clam bakes. I'm hoping that there was a fire truck nearby because it looked like there was some charcoal broiling going on there. Brian Stewart was a student at Lenox High in 1999. And at that time, an English teacher by the name of Shirley Vincent assigned an Our Town Ourselves project. And Brian's project was on the Lenox Fire Department, and he interviewed Chief Conklin. And he asked him what was the best thing about being in the fire department. He said the comradeship. And I think we still see that today. Here's the 1971 4th of July parade lineup. And Hutch also liked a good parade. Here he is on now there's a 1909 sign on that truck. You can say that the truck's from 1909 because that's when it was ordered, or you can say 1910 because that was what it was built. I leave that up to you to pick which year. And on the right is Cap in the same uniform that we saw retired Chief Chris O'Brien wear. And he's riding with Dr. Bob Coakley for the Lenox Tub Parade. So Chief Hutchinson and Chief Conklin were the two chiefs from 1909 to 1981. And we've had Jack Stringer, Jeff Lane, Daniel Clifford, Chris O'Brien, and Bob Casucci since. I don't know how long Bob Casucci intends to be our chief. I hope he is for a good long time. Actually, Danny Clifford was the second longest tenure. I think Cap might have been the second longest if Hutch had retired a little earlier, but they worked well together. So I think you'll agree that after 115 years of that Clifford-built fire station, it's time for a new facility. You can see the 1905 La France on the left that fits with plenty of room to spare. And you can see on the right is a current picture. Those trucks have to be retrofitted to fit in that station. So that I don't think is going to be a problem going forward. So I'd like to thank Lenox Library Association for having those materials, the Lenox Historical Society, and especially the family of Cap Conklin.
So I'm Cap's daughter, Christine, and this is my sister, Kate. We were just saying, God, I don't know, how did he get that name? But we think that his father, Edward George Conklin Sr., wore a cap in his job as a chauffeur for the Bishop estate and for some of the other big families in town during those early years of the 20th century, and when cars were being invented. And so he wore a cap and was called Cap. And perhaps his son, who had the same name, also had the same nickname and was Cap, because his Betsy, you probably remember, he was always called Cap. Yeah. So we have here with us today Betsy Fitzpatrick and Skip Galvin, who are Cap's only niece and nephew. Despite the fact that he had 4 sisters, he had only one that had children. So it's a pleasure to have them here, and we're so grateful to Amy for this fabulous talk.
Okay.
Entire history.
Thank you, Christine. I don't know if you caught it, but the materials from the World War period came from Cap's mother's scrapbook, and there's a lot of material that I left out, but we have it digitized and part of our collection, our digital collection. So, who else has questions? All right, I saw Dave Roach here. All right.
Well, oh yeah, now I can see everybody. Cap and I we're close friends. We did a lot together over the years. He kind of took me under my wing. He was proud of the fact that my brother and I and the other town guys went into the service. He was just really a genuinely nice person. His language, on the other hand, could be a little bit suspect, but he certainly meant well, and he was a fixture at town hall. Anybody who went there could get a cup of coffee and a lot of conversation. I remember one story of a tourist walking into town hall wanting some information. They wanted to know about housing, they wanted to know about schools, and they said, "Is this a healthy town to live in?" This cat said, "Well, for Christ's sake, we had to shoot somebody to start a cemetery." I'm not sure what happened to that individual. Maybe located here or not. But yeah, that was Cap, and I miss him every day. I was so totally honored to be a pallbearer in his funeral, and I don't stop by the cemetery without saying hi. So thank you all for coming today, and God bless Cap and Hutch.
That's great. Did I do okay? That wasn't meant to get applause. It was more, did I get anything wrong? No? Good. Thank you so much for coming. Yes.